Picture this. You are scrolling through your phone late at night. Your thumb moves up and down the screen like it has done 1,000 times before. Then suddenly, you stop. There it is. A meme about some guy named Enoch who just walked away from Earth like he was going to the store to buy milk. But this guy never came back. Not because he got lost or forgot where he lived. No, this guy went straight up to heaven without even dying first. Welcome to the wild world of Enoch memes. They hit different than other memes. They make you laugh, sure, but they also make you think. They make you wonder about mysteries that are thousands of years old. They bring back feelings you did not even know you had. This is the story of how an ancient man who lived before the Great Flood became the king of internet comedy. But why do these memes feel so special? Why do they make us feel nostalgic for times we never lived through? Why does a guy from the Bible, who most people never heard of, suddenly become the funniest thing on the internet? The answer is more interesting than you might think. Memes are funny pictures or videos that spread around the internet like wildfire. Most memes last about a week before everyone gets tired of them. But Enoch memes are different. They keep coming back. Every few months, someone makes a new Enoch meme and it explodes all over again. People share them like they are sharing secret knowledge, like they found treasure that nobody else knows about. The thing about nostalgia is that it does not always mean missing something from your own past. Sometimes it means missing something from humanity's past. Something we lost along the way. Something we wish we still had. And that is exactly what Enoch represents. He represents a time when the world was different. When God walked close to people. When impossible things happened every day. So buckle up. We are about to take a journey through time. We will start in the ancient world where Enoch lived his incredible life. We will see how his story survived for thousands of years. Then we will jump to our modern world where his story became internet gold. This is not just a story about memes. This is a story about why certain stories never die, why they keep coming back in new forms, why they make us laugh and cry at the same time. The man who never died. Let me tell you about the most mysterious person who ever lived. His name was Enoch, and his story is so weird that people have been talking about it for over 4,000 years. Most people live their lives, get old, and die. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. But Enoch broke the rules. The Bible tells us about Enoch in just a few sentences, but those sentences are packed with mystery. It says that Enoch walked with God for 300 years, not walked to church on Sundays, not prayed before meals. He literally walked with God like God was his best friend. Can you imagine that? Having a conversation with the Creator of the universe while you take your morning walk. But here is the really crazy part. After walking with God for all those years, Enoch just disappeared. The Bible says God took him. One day he was there, the next day he was gone. No funeral, no grave, no death certificate. He just vanished into thin air. Imagine trying to explain that to your family. Sorry everyone, Dad is not dead. He just got promoted to heaven. Now, before we go any further, let me paint you a picture of what the world was like when Enoch lived. This was way before smartphones, way before cars, way before anything we think of as normal life. This was back when people lived for hundreds of years, when giants walked the earth, when angels came down from heaven and caused all kinds of trouble. It was a world so different from ours that it might as well have been another planet. Enoch lived during what Bible scholars call the antediluvian period. That is a fancy way of saying before the flood. You know, the big flood that Noah built his ark for. The world back then was nothing like our world. People did not die at 70 or 80 years old. They lived for centuries. Enoch's great-grandfather Adam lived for 930 years. His grandfather Jared lived for 962 years. His father Methuselah lived for 969 years, making him the oldest person who ever lived. But even in a world where people lived for nearly 1,000 years, Enoch was special. He only lived for 365 years, which back then was like dying young. But the reason he did not live longer was not because he got sick or had an accident. It was because God took him to heaven while he was still alive. God basically said, "You know what, Enoch? You are so good at this walking with me thing that I am just going to bring you home early." Think about how strange that must have been for everyone who knew Enoch. One day, they are talking to him, maybe planning what to do next week, and the next day, he is just gone. Poof. Vanished. No goodbye party. No last words. Just gone. His family probably spent weeks looking for him. Did he fall into a river? Did wild animals get him? Did he get lost in the wilderness? But deep down, they probably knew the truth. Enoch had been talking about God so much, spending so much time in prayer and meditation, that it was almost like he was already living in heaven while still on earth. The Bible gives us one tiny clue about what made Enoch so special. It says he walked with God. But what does that even mean? In those days, God was not some distant figure that people only heard about in church. God was real and present in ways that we can barely understand. The Garden of Eden had only been lost a few generations earlier. People still remembered what it was like when God walked in the garden in the cool of the evening. They remembered when talking to God was as normal as talking to your neighbor. So when the Bible says Enoch walked with God, it probably means exactly that. While other people were busy with their daily lives, building cities, raising families, making money, Enoch was taking long walks with the creator of the universe. Can you imagine the conversations they must have had? God probably showed Enoch things that no other human had ever seen, explained mysteries about how the universe works, told him secrets about the past and the future. But walking with God was not just about getting special knowledge. It was about becoming the kind of person who could handle being in God's presence. Most people, even good people, would probably be overwhelmed by spending time directly with God. It would be like staring at the sun. Too bright, too powerful, too much to handle. But Enoch somehow learned how to walk with God without being destroyed by the experience. This is where the story gets really interesting from a meme perspective. Enoch did not just disappear. According to later Jewish and Christian traditions, God took Enoch to heaven to give him a special job. Enoch became a scribe in heaven. His job was to write down everything that happened in the spiritual realm, all the secrets of the universe, all the mysteries of creation, all the plans God had for the future of humanity. Some ancient books that did not make it into the Bible tell us much more about Enoch's heavenly adventures. These books, called the Books of Enoch, are full of wild stories about Enoch traveling through different levels of heaven, meeting angels, and learning cosmic secrets. In these stories, Enoch sees the throne room of God. He watches fallen angels being punished for their crimes. He learns about the future judgment of the earth. He becomes like a cosmic reporter, writing down everything for future generations. Whether you believe these extra stories or not, one thing is clear. Enoch captured people's imagination in a way that few biblical characters ever have. He represents the ultimate mystery man, the guy who knew secrets that nobody else knew, the guy who had a direct line to God, the guy who cheated death not by living forever, but by skipping death entirely. And here is the thing that makes Enoch perfect for memes. His story is so outrageous that it sounds almost like a joke. Imagine trying to explain Enoch's life to someone who has never heard of him before. So there was this guy who was so holy that God just decided to beam him up to heaven like he was on Star Trek. People would think you were making it up. It sounds like the kind of story that ancient people would invent to explain something they did not understand. But the story stuck around. For thousands of years, people kept telling the story of Enoch. Jewish rabbis wrote long commentaries about him. Christian monks copied and recopied his story. Islamic scholars included him in their traditions as Idris the prophet. Generation after generation, people were fascinated by this man who walked with God and never tasted death. The reason Enoch's story survived is the same reason it works so well as a meme today. It is the perfect combination of mysterious and ridiculous. It is impossible to ignore and impossible to fully understand. It makes you laugh, but it also makes you wonder. What if it really happened? What if there really was a time when people could walk with God like that? What if there really are cosmic secrets that most of us never learn about? In our modern world, we have gotten used to the idea that life is pretty much the same for everyone. You are born, you go to school, you get a job, you retire, you die. But Enoch represents a completely different possibility. He represents the idea that some people might be destined for something completely different. Something so different that the normal rules do not apply to them. That is a powerful idea, especially in our age of social media, where everyone seems to be living the same basic life, just with different filters. Enoch represents the ultimate plot twist, the ultimate cheat code, the ultimate escape from ordinary life. And that is exactly the kind of thing that makes for great memes. When heaven called his name, let us talk about what it really means to disappear from Earth without dying. Not like getting lost in the woods or falling off a cliff. We are talking about a complete exit from physical reality while still being alive. This is not something that happens every day. In fact, according to most religious traditions, it has only happened to a handful of people in all of human history. The Bible mentions only 2 people who never experienced death. Enoch was the first. Much later, The prophet Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind with chariots of fire. But Enoch was the original. He was the beta test for skipping death entirely. And unlike Elijah, who had a dramatic exit with fire and wind, Enoch just quietly disappeared one day. No special effects, no big announcement. He was there, then he was not. Imagine being Enoch's wife on that day. Maybe she woke up and noticed he was not in bed. Maybe she thought he got up early to pray, like he always did. But hours passed, and he did not come back. She probably sent their kids out to look for him. Check the usual places. The quiet spot by the river where he liked to meditate. The hill where he went to watch the sunset and talk to God. But Enoch was not anywhere on earth anymore. According to the story, God had taken him. But what does that actually mean? How do you get taken by God? Is it like getting picked up by a friend? Do you get a warning? Does God say, "Hey Enoch, pack your bags, we are going on a trip"? Or does it happen all at once, like getting beamed up in a science fiction movie? The Hebrew word that gets translated as taken is very interesting. It is the same word used when someone takes something from one place and puts it in another place, like taking a book from a shelf and putting it on a table. It suggests that God literally moved Enoch from earth to heaven, like moving a chess piece on a board. One moment Enoch was playing the game of life on earth. The next moment he was continuing the game from a completely different board. But why Enoch? What made him so special that he got to skip the whole death thing? The Bible gives us a clue when it says that Enoch walked with God and pleased God. But lots of people try to please God. Lots of people pray and try to be good. What made Enoch different? The answer might be in what it means to walk with God. This was not just about being religious or following rules. Walking with God means living in constant awareness of God's presence. It means making decisions based on eternal perspectives instead of temporary ones. It means caring more about spiritual reality than physical reality. Most people, even good people, live their lives focused on earthly things. What to eat, where to live, how to make money, what other people think of them. But Enoch seems to have flipped that around. He lived his life focused on heavenly things, with earthly things being secondary. He was already living like he was in heaven, so when God invited him to actually come to heaven, it was not that big of a change. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a friend who loves video games so much that they think about games all day, dream about games at night, and spend every free minute playing games. Then imagine that friend gets offered a job at their favorite video game company, working on the exact games they love most. That transition would be natural and exciting, not scary or strange. That might be what happened with Enoch. He was so focused on God and spiritual things that when God offered him the ultimate spiritual experience, moving to heaven itself, it was a natural next step, not a shocking interruption of his life, but the logical conclusion of the life he was already living. But there is another way to think about what happened to Enoch. Maybe God took him not just as a reward for his faithfulness, but as a message to everyone else. Maybe Enoch's disappearance was God's way of saying, "Look, this is possible. Death is not the only way to leave Earth. There are other options. There are other ways this story can end." In a world where everyone else lived for hundreds of years and then died, Enoch's story was revolutionary. It suggested that the normal pattern of life and death was not set in stone. It suggested that there might be escape routes from the human condition that most people never discover. It suggested that the relationship between God and humans could be so close that the normal rules of reality might bend or break. This is incredibly important for understanding why Enoch memes hit so hard in our current time. We live in an age where everything feels predictable and trapped. You go to school for 12 years, then maybe college for 4 more years, then you work for 40 years, then you retire and wait to die. The path is laid out in advance. There are very few surprises, very few plot twists, very few escape routes, but Enoch represents the ultimate plot twist. He represents the idea that maybe, just maybe, there are still ways to break out of the normal pattern. Maybe there are still secrets to discover. Maybe there are still adventures to be had that completely change the rules of the game. Maybe ordinary life is not the only option. When people share Enoch memes, they are not just sharing funny pictures. They are sharing a dream. The dream that life could be radically different than it appears to be. The dream that there might be cosmic adventures waiting for people who are brave enough, or faithful enough, or crazy enough to pursue them. The dream that the mundane world we see around us might not be the whole story. The ancient Jewish traditions have some wild stories about what Enoch found when he got to heaven. According to these stories, Enoch was transformed into an angel named Metatron. He became the scribe of heaven, writing down everything that happened in the spiritual realm. He learned the secrets of creation, the mysteries of time and space, the hidden meanings behind everything that happens on earth. In some traditions, Enoch became so powerful in heaven that he was almost like a second god. He sat on a throne next to God's throne. Angels bowed down to him. He had authority over vast regions of the spiritual world. He went from being a regular human walking around on earth to being one of the most powerful beings in the universe. Now, whether you believe these later traditions or not, they show how Enoch's story grew over time. People were so fascinated by the idea of a human who got promoted to heaven that they kept adding to his story. They kept imagining what his heavenly life might be like. They kept dreaming about the possibilities that his story represented. And that is exactly what makes Enoch perfect for meme culture. His story is like a blank canvas that people can project their own dreams and fantasies onto. Want to escape your boring job? Enoch did it. Want to learn cosmic secrets? Enoch learned them all. Want to skip the whole death thing? Enoch figured out how to do it. Want to have direct access to God? Enoch walked and talked with God every day. Enoch's disappearance from Earth was not just the end of his earthly story. It was the beginning of his legend. It was the moment when he stopped being just another guy and became a symbol of infinite possibility. It was the moment when his story became bigger than history and entered the realm of myth and dream. But here is the thing about myths and dreams. They have a way of coming back to life in unexpected ways. They have a way of finding new expressions in new generations. They have a way of speaking to people across thousands of years. in completely different cultures and circumstances. And that is exactly what has happened with Enoch in the age of internet memes. The mystery that broke the internet. So how does a guy who disappeared thousands of years ago become an internet sensation? How does someone who most people never heard of suddenly become the star of viral memes? The answer lies in understanding what makes something meme-worthy in the first place. And Enoch, it turns out, has all the right ingredients for internet fame. First, let us talk about timing. Enoch memes did not appear out of nowhere. They started showing up right around the time when people were getting tired of the same old memes about cats, celebrities, and pop culture. The internet was hungry for something fresh, something different, something that felt deeper than just another joke about a movie or a song. Around the same time, people were starting to get interested in ancient mysteries again. Shows about ancient aliens were popular. People were reading about lost civilizations. There was a growing sense that maybe our ancestors knew things that we have forgotten. Maybe the old stories contain more truth than we thought. Maybe there are mysteries hiding in plain sight in ancient texts that most people ignore. Enter Enoch. Here was a character from one of the oldest books in the world, with one of the most mysterious stories ever told. A guy who literally walked off the face of the earth without dying. A guy who supposedly learned cosmic secrets and became a powerful angel. A guy whose story was so wild that it sounded like science fiction, except it was written thousands of years before science fiction was invented. The first Enoch memes were pretty simple, usually just a picture of someone walking away, with text like, Enoch walking with God for 300 years, then just dipping to heaven without dying. Or a picture of someone disappearing, with text like, everyone else lives 900 years then dies. Enoch, nah, I'm good, with a picture of him floating upward. But these simple memes hit different than other memes. They had layers. On the surface level, they were funny because the situation was so absurd. But underneath, they were touching something deeper. They were touching the part of people that wishes they could escape the normal patterns of life. The part that wishes there were still mysteries to discover. The part that wishes the world was more magical than it appears to be. What really made Enoch memes explode was when people started connecting his story to modern situations. Suddenly, there were memes about Enoch being the first person to ghost someone. Memes about how Enoch invented the ultimate Irish goodbye. Memes about Enoch being so done with humanity that he just left the planet entirely. But the memes that really went viral were the ones that captured the absurdity of Enoch's situation compared to everyone else in his time. Remember, this was a time when people lived for hundreds of years. Death was not something that happened often. Families stayed together for centuries. The idea of someone just disappearing was completely unprecedented. One popular meme format showed Enoch's family having a conversation. Where's great-great-great-grandfather Enoch? Oh, God took him to heaven. Wait, he died? No, he just left. What do you mean he just left? Like, he went to heaven, but he is still alive. That makes no sense. Yeah, we don't understand it either. Another popular format compared Enoch to other biblical characters. Moses gets famous for parting the Red Sea. David gets famous for killing Goliath. Enoch gets famous for literally just leaving. These memes worked because they highlighted how uniquely weird Enoch's story is, even compared to other miraculous biblical stories. But the memes that really captured people's imagination were the ones that treated Enoch like a modern person dealing with an extraordinary situation. Memes about Enoch trying to explain to his wife that he had to go to heaven for a work meeting. Memes about Enoch updating his social media status to "It's complicated" after getting translated to heaven. Memes about Enoch being the first person to work from home, except home was in another dimension. The beauty of these memes was that they made an ancient, mystical story feel relatable and human. They took this cosmic, supernatural event and translated it into the kind of everyday awkwardness that everyone can understand. They made Enoch feel like a regular guy who just happened to have the most unusual life story in human history. Social media algorithms loved Enoch memes because they generated so much engagement. People did not just scroll past them, they stopped to read them, they shared them, they commented on them. They started arguments about whether the story was real or symbolic. They looked up the Bible verses to read the original story. They researched ancient Jewish traditions about Enoch's heavenly adventures. The comment sections under Enoch memes became fascinating places. You had people making jokes, but you also had people sharing genuine curiosity about the story. People asking questions like, "Wait, is this real?" And "Where is this in the Bible?" And "Are there other people who never died?" The memes became gateways for people to explore ancient texts and traditions they had never encountered before. Religious people loved Enoch memes because they brought attention to a biblical story that most people overlook. The story of Enoch is only a few verses in Genesis, squeezed between long genealogies that most people skip over. But the memes highlighted how incredible and mysterious those few verses really are. They made people realize that there are amazing stories hiding in parts of the Bible that seem boring at first glance. Non-religious people loved Enoch memes for different reasons. For them, Enoch represented the ultimate escape fantasy. Here was someone who figured out how to opt out of the human condition entirely. Someone who found a cheat code for life itself. Someone who proved that the normal rules do not have to apply if you know the right secrets or have the right connections. But there was something else that made Enoch memes special. They had a quality that internet culture calls big mood energy. Enoch's decision to just walk away from Earth and go to heaven felt like the ultimate expression of being done with everything. In a world full of stress, conflict, disappointment, and mundane routine, Enoch represented the dream of just saying nope to all of it and finding a better situation somewhere else. The timing could not have been better. Enoch memes exploded during a period when many people were feeling trapped by circumstances beyond their control. Economic problems, political conflicts, social media drama, work stress, relationship problems. People were looking for escape routes, even imaginary ones. Enoch provided the ultimate escape route. Not just changing jobs or moving to a new city, but literally leaving the planet while still alive. As the memes spread, they started evolving and getting more creative. People began making elaborate scenarios about what Enoch's life in heaven might be like. Memes about Enoch getting cosmic Wi-Fi passwords. Memes about Enoch being the angel in charge of filing reports about Earth. Memes about Enoch trying to explain modern technology to other ancient figures in heaven. The memes also started connecting Enoch's story to other pop culture references. Comparisons to characters who disappeared mysteriously in movies and TV shows. Jokes about Enoch being the original inspiration for alien abduction stories. References to Enoch as the prototype for characters who transcend normal human limitations in science fiction and fantasy. What made all of this even more powerful was the fact that Enoch's story is not just ancient history. It is part of living religious traditions that billions of people still follow today. When people make memes about fictional characters, it is just entertainment. But when people make memes about Enoch, they are engaging with a story that some people believe actually happened. That adds weight and significance to the humor. The memes became a way for people to explore big questions about life, death, spirituality, and human potential without having to be serious or scholarly about it. They could laugh at the absurdity of Enoch's situation while also wondering if there might be truth hidden in the ancient story. They could enjoy the humor while also feeling a sense of awe about the mysteries of existence. Why these memes hit different? There is something special about Enoch memes that goes way beyond regular internet humor. When people share them, they are not just trying to get likes or make people laugh. They are sharing something that touches a deep part of the human experience. Something that connects to feelings and longings that most people carry around but rarely talk about. Let us start with the obvious thing that makes these memes different. They are about someone who actually appears in religious texts that billions of people consider sacred. When you make a meme about a movie character or a celebrity, you are just playing with entertainment. But when you make a meme about Enoch, you are playing with stories that people have been taking seriously for thousands of years. That adds a weight and depth that regular memes do not have. But there is more to it than that. Enoch memes hit different because they touch on some of the biggest questions that humans have always asked. Questions like, is there more to life than what we can see? Are there people who know secrets that the rest of us do not know? Is it possible to transcend the normal human condition? Are there escape routes from the problems and limitations that trap most people? In our modern world, most people live with a sense that life is pretty predictable. You are born, you grow up, you work, you age, you die. The path is laid out in advance. There are not many surprises. There are not many plot twists. There are not many opportunities for your life to become something completely different than what everyone expects. But Enoch represents the ultimate plot twist. Here was a guy living a normal life, probably dealing with the same kinds of daily challenges that everyone faces. But then his story took a turn that nobody saw coming. Instead of following the normal human pattern of aging and death, he got promoted to heaven while still alive. He broke out of the standard human experience and entered something completely different. That idea is incredibly appealing to people who feel stuck in their own lives. People who feel trapped by student loans, dead-end jobs, family obligations, health problems, or just the general sense that life is not turning out the way they hoped. Enoch represents the possibility that maybe, just maybe, there are still ways for ordinary people to have extraordinary experiences. But there is another layer to why these memes resonate so deeply. They connect to a sense of nostalgia for a time when the world was more mysterious and magical than it is today. Enoch lived in an era when people regularly lived for hundreds of years, when giants walked the earth, when angels came down from heaven and interacted with humans, when God was not some distant theological concept, but a real presence that people could walk and talk with. Whether you believe those stories literally or not, they represent something that our modern world has lost. A sense of wonder, a sense that reality is bigger and stranger and more full of possibilities than it appears on the surface. A sense that there are still mysteries to discover and adventures to be had. Our modern world is incredibly advanced in terms of technology and scientific knowledge, but in some ways, it feels smaller and more limited than the ancient world. We know so much about how things work that there is not much room left for mystery. We have explained away most of the magic. We have reduced most phenomena to scientific processes that can be predicted and controlled. But deep down, most people still hunger for mystery. They still want to believe that there are secrets to be discovered. They still want to believe that reality is bigger and stranger than what they see in their daily lives. They still want to believe that there might be cosmic adventures waiting for people who are brave enough, or wise enough, or faithful enough to pursue them. Enoch memes tap into that hunger. They remind people of a time when the impossible was possible, when ordinary people could have experiences that completely transcended normal human limitations, when the boundary between heaven and earth was thin enough that people could cross it without dying first. There is also something deeply satisfying about Enoch's approach to his extraordinary situation. He did not become proud or show off his special relationship with God. He did not start a religion or try to become famous. He did not write books or give speeches about his cosmic experiences. He just quietly walked with God for 300 years, and then quietly disappeared when God called him home. That humility is incredibly appealing in our age of social media, where everyone is constantly trying to promote themselves and get attention. Enoch had access to the ultimate cosmic secrets, but he did not turn it into a personal brand. He had the most extraordinary life story in human history, but he did not try to monetize it. He just lived his life in faithful relationship with God and let God handle the rest. The memes often play with this contrast between Enoch's humility and how a modern person might handle his situation. Jokes about how if Enoch lived today, he would probably have a YouTube channel called Walking with God Daily, with millions of subscribers. Jokes about Enoch's Instagram stories, showing behind-the-scenes footage of his heavenly translation. Jokes about Enoch getting book deals and speaking engagements about his cosmic experiences. But the real Enoch did none of that. He just lived faithfully and let his life speak for itself. And maybe that is part of why his story has survived for thousands of years, while most other stories from his time period have been forgotten. There is something timeless about genuine humility and authentic spiritual experience that transcends cultural changes and historical periods. Another reason Enoch memes hit different is that they offer hope without being preachy. They suggest that extraordinary things are possible without requiring people to commit to any particular religious or philosophical system. You can enjoy an Enoch meme and feel inspired by the possibility it represents without having to decide whether you believe the story literally or what it means for your own spiritual life. That makes Enoch memes accessible to people from all kinds of backgrounds. Religious people can appreciate them as celebrations of a biblical story they take seriously. Spiritual, but not religious people can appreciate them as expressions of mystical possibility. Agnostic people can appreciate them as interesting ancient mythology. Even atheist people can appreciate them as examples of human creativity and storytelling. The memes work on multiple levels simultaneously. They are funny on the surface, but they also touch deeper themes about human longing, spiritual possibility, and the search for meaning in life. They make people laugh, but they also make people think. They entertain, but they also inspire. They connect ancient wisdom with modern humor in ways that feel fresh and relevant. Perhaps most importantly, Enoch memes remind people that the stories that survive across thousands of years do so for good reasons. They touch something universal in the human experience. They speak to longings and dreams and hopes that every generation feels. They offer glimpses of possibilities that transcend the limitations of any particular time period or culture. In our age of rapid change and constant information overload, there is something comforting about connecting with stories that have been meaningful to people for millennia. Enoch memes create a bridge between the ancient world and the digital world. They show that some themes and dreams and longings are truly timeless. They remind us that we are part of a much larger human story that stretches back to the very beginning of recorded history. From ancient scrolls to viral posts, the journey from ancient religious text to internet meme is not something that happens overnight. It took thousands of years for Enoch's story to travel from the original Hebrew scrolls to modern smartphones. But understanding that journey helps explain why Enoch memes feel so different from other kinds of internet humor. They carry the weight of history. They connect us to a chain of storytelling that stretches back to the dawn of human civilization. Let us start at the beginning. The original story of Enoch appears in the book of Genesis, which was probably written down around 3,000 years ago, though the stories it contains are much older than that. For the ancient Hebrews who first recorded Enoch's story, it was not just an interesting tale. It was part of their understanding of how God related to humanity in the earliest days of the world. But even in the original biblical text, Enoch's story stands out as unusual. Genesis spends a lot of time on genealogies, listing who lived, how long, and when they died. Adam lived 930 years, and he died. Seth lived 912 years, and he died. Enoch lived 905 years, and he died. The pattern repeats over and over until you get to Enoch. Enoch lived 365 years, and then, instead of the usual, and he died, the text says something completely different. Enoch walked with God, and then he was not, for God took him. That break in the pattern would have jumped out at ancient readers, just as much as it jumps out at modern readers. It was clearly meant to signal that something extraordinary had happened. As Jewish culture developed over the centuries, rabbis and scholars became fascinated by Enoch's story. They wrote extensive commentaries, trying to understand what it meant to walk with God. They developed elaborate theories about what happened when God took Enoch. They created detailed accounts of Enoch's experiences in heaven. These writings, known as Enochian literature, filled in the gaps that the brief biblical account left open. Some of these later writings are absolutely wild by modern standards. They describe Enoch traveling through multiple levels of heaven, each one more incredible than the last. They tell stories of Enoch meeting different types of angels, learning cosmic secrets, and being transformed into a powerful angelic being himself. They paint pictures of vast spiritual realms, full of wonders that human language can barely describe. Whether these later elaborations reflect actual ancient traditions or are creative expansions of the original story, they show how Enoch captured people's imagination across many generations. His brief appearance in Genesis became the seed for centuries of speculation, storytelling, and spiritual exploration. People could not let his story go. They had to keep expanding it, exploring it, trying to understand its implications. Early Christians were also fascinated by Enoch. The New Testament book of Hebrews mentions him as an example of faith, saying that, by faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death. The book of Jude actually quotes from one of the ancient Enochian writings, showing that these expanded versions of his story were known and respected in early Christian communities. As Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire and beyond, Enoch's story traveled with it. Christian monks copied and preserved both the biblical account and some of the expanded Enochian literature. They saw Enoch as a prototype of the Christian hope for eternal life and resurrection. If Enoch could be taken to heaven without dying, maybe other faithful people could have similar experiences. Islamic traditions also preserved and expanded Enoch's story. In the Quran, he appears as the prophet Idris, who was raised to a high place by God. Islamic commentators developed their own elaborate accounts of his heavenly experiences and cosmic knowledge. Across multiple religious traditions, Enoch became a symbol of human potential for direct relationship with the divine. During the medieval period, Enoch's story continued to inspire artists, writers, and theologians. Medieval Christians saw him as a prefiguration of Christ's ascension to heaven. Medieval Jewish mystics incorporated Enochian traditions into their explorations of Kabbalah and esoteric spirituality. The story remained alive and meaningful across different cultures and centuries. But then something interesting happened during the modern period. As scientific thinking became more dominant, many people began to view stories like Enoch's as primitive mythology that educated people should not take seriously. The miraculous elements that had fascinated ancient and medieval readers began to seem embarrassing to modern readers who prided themselves on rational, scientific worldviews. For several centuries, Enoch's story was mostly relegated to academic study of ancient literature or the private devotions of religious believers. It was not the kind of thing that showed up in popular culture or public conversation. The scientific revolution and the Enlightenment had created a cultural atmosphere where ancient miracle stories seemed irrelevant to modern life. But then came the internet age, and everything changed. Suddenly, ancient stories that had been forgotten or ignored by mainstream culture found new life in digital spaces. People who might never pick up a Bible or visit a library were encountering these stories through social media, online forums, and viral content. The gatekeepers of cultural respectability no longer had complete control over which stories people paid attention to. The internet also created a culture where anything could become a meme if it was interesting, funny, or thought-provoking enough. The normal barriers between high culture and pop culture, between sacred and secular, between ancient and modern, began to break down. If a story could generate engagement, it could go viral, regardless of where it came from or how old it was. Enoch was perfectly positioned to benefit from this cultural shift. His story had all the elements that make for great memes. It was short enough to fit in a social media post. It was strange enough to grab attention. It was funny enough to make people laugh. But it was also deep enough to make people think. It had the perfect combination of accessibility and mystery that internet culture loves. The first people to turn Enoch's story into memes were probably individuals who had encountered it through religious education or personal Bible study and were struck by how bizarre and funny it seemed when viewed through modern eyes. They realized that this ancient story, which most people had never heard of, was actually comedy gold waiting to be mined. As the memes began to spread, they introduced Enoch's story to audiences who would never have encountered it otherwise. Young people who had no religious background suddenly found themselves reading Genesis to understand the references. People who thought they knew everything about biblical stories discovered that there were wild tales hiding in parts of the Bible they had never explored. The viral nature of social media meant that Enoch's story could spread faster and reach more people than ever before in human history. In previous eras, you had to be part of a religious community or have access to scholarly resources to learn about figures like Enoch. But in the meme age, anyone with a smartphone could encounter his story and share it with their networks within seconds. This democratization of ancient stories has had fascinating effects. It has made religious and mythological traditions accessible to people who might otherwise never engage with them. It has created new forms of cultural literacy that cross traditional boundaries between secular and sacred education. It has shown that ancient stories can still speak powerfully to modern audiences when presented in the right format. but it has also created new challenges for traditional religious communities. When ancient stories become memes, they take on lives of their own that religious authorities cannot control. The meaning and significance of these stories becomes democratized, interpreted, and reinterpreted by anyone with internet access and creative instincts. For Enoch specifically, the meme treatment has probably introduced his story to more people in the last few years than learned about him in the previous few centuries. Millions of people who might never read the Bible or study ancient Jewish literature now know about the man who walked with God and was taken to heaven without dying. They may not understand all the theological implications of his story, but they know the basic outline and find it fascinating. This represents a remarkable achievement for a story that is thousands of years old. In an age when most people's attention spans are measured in seconds and most cultural content has the lifespan of mayflies, Enoch's ancient story has found new relevance and new audiences. It has proven that some human stories are truly timeless, able to speak across vast distances of time and culture when presented in forms that contemporary audiences can connect with. The nostalgia factor that nobody talks about. Here is the thing about nostalgia that most people do not realize. You do not have to personally experience something to feel nostalgic for it. You can feel nostalgic for times you never lived through, places you have never been, and experiences you have never had. Psychologists call this historical nostalgia or cultural nostalgia, and it explains why Enoch memes hit so many people so hard, even people who have no religious background whatsoever. When people share Enoch memes, they are not just laughing at a funny story. They are expressing nostalgia for a world where impossible things happened regularly. A world where the boundary between heaven and earth was so thin that ordinary people could cross it. A world where mystery and magic were part of everyday life instead of being confined to movies and books. Think about what the world was like in Enoch's time, at least according to the stories that have come down to us. People lived for hundreds of years, so families stayed together for centuries. Children could know their great-great-great-grandparents personally. The accumulated wisdom of multiple lifetimes was available within single-family units. Death was rare enough that it was a major event when it happened. God was not some distant theological concept, but a real presence that people could encounter directly. Angels came and went between heaven and earth. Giants roamed the landscape. The natural world was full of wonders that defied normal explanation. Every day brought the possibility of miraculous encounters and supernatural experiences. Now compare that to our modern world. Most people live isolated from extended family. Elderly relatives die when we are young, taking their wisdom with them. God, if people believe in God at all, seems distant and silent. Angels, if they exist, stay invisible. Miracles, if they happen, are rare enough that they make international news. The natural world, while still beautiful, has been mostly explained and categorized and brought under human control. We live in a world where mystery has been largely eliminated. Science has explained most phenomena. Technology has made most experiences predictable. Global communication means that there are very few truly unknown places left on Earth. Satellite imagery means that even the most remote locations can be viewed from space. DNA testing means that even human identity and ancestry can be reduced to data points. This is not necessarily a bad thing. Scientific understanding has eliminated many forms of suffering. Medical advances have extended human lifespans and reduced pain. Technology has connected people across vast distances and made information universally accessible. The modern world offers comforts and opportunities that ancient people could never have imagined. But something has been lost in the process. The sense of wonder, the sense that reality is bigger and stranger than what we can see and measure. The sense that there might be cosmic adventures waiting for people who know how to find them. The sense that ordinary life might not be the only option available to human beings. Enoch represents everything that our modern world has lost. He lived in a time when the impossible was possible, when ordinary people could have extraordinary experiences, when the cosmos was full of mystery and adventure, when death was not inevitable, and the normal rules of reality could be transcended by people who knew the right secrets or had the right relationships. When people share Enoch memes, they are expressing a deep longing for that kind of world, not necessarily because they want to go back to ancient times with all their hardships and limitations, but because they want to live in a reality where wonder and mystery and transcendence are still possible. They want to believe that there are still secrets to discover and adventures to be had that completely change the rules of the game. This nostalgia is particularly strong among young people who have grown up in the internet age. They have access to more information than any generation in human history, but that information is mostly about mundane things. They can learn anything they want about how the world works, but very little of it suggests that the world is magical or mysterious or full of hidden possibilities. Social media shows them endless streams of other people living basically the same kinds of lives they live. School, work, relationships, entertainment, aging, death. The patterns are visible and predictable. The options seem limited. The path forward seems clearly marked and not particularly exciting. But then they encounter a story like Enoch's, and suddenly they glimpse the possibility of a completely different kind of existence. A life where the normal rules do not apply. A world where cosmic adventures are available to people who pursue the right relationships. A reality where transcendence is possible and death is optional. The memes allow them to play with these possibilities without having to commit to believing them literally. They can enjoy the fantasy of escape from ordinary human limitations without having to join a religion or adopt a particular worldview. They can express their longing for mystery and wonder through humor and creativity. But there is another layer to the nostalgia that Enoch memes evoke. It is not just nostalgia for a more magical world. It is also nostalgia for a time when people had direct, personal relationships with ultimate reality. Enoch did not just believe in God or worship God from a distance. He walked with God. He had conversations with the creator of the universe. He experienced divine presence as a daily reality rather than a theological concept. That kind of direct spiritual experience seems almost impossible in our modern world. Even deeply religious people mostly rely on ancient texts, religious traditions, and faith rather than direct personal encounters with the divine. The kind of immediate, tangible relationship with God that Enoch enjoyed seems to belong to a different era of human history. But people still long for that kind of connection. They still want to believe that ultimate reality is personal rather than impersonal. They still want to believe that the creator of the universe cares about individual human beings enough to have direct relationships with them. They still want to believe that spiritual experience can be as real and immediate as physical experience. Enoch represents the possibility that such relationships are still available. His story suggests that the gap between human and divine is not as vast as it seems. It suggests that ordinary people can develop extraordinary connections with ultimate reality. It suggests that the cosmic loneliness that many modern people feel is not inevitable. The nostalgia that Enoch memes evoke is also connected to a longing for simpler times when life had clearer meaning and purpose. In Enoch's world, the goal of life was straightforward: walk with God, be faithful, and trust that God would take care of everything else. There were not endless options to choose from or complex decisions to make about career, lifestyle, relationships, and identity. Modern life offers incredible freedom and opportunity, but it also creates anxiety and confusion. With so many options available, how do you know which ones to choose? With so many different paths forward, how do you know which one leads to fulfillment? With so many competing voices offering advice about how to live, how do you know which ones to trust? Enoch's approach to life was radically simple. He focused on one relationship above all others. He made decisions based on that relationship, rather than on external pressures or internal desires. He trusted that if he stayed faithful to his walk with God, everything else would work out according to divine plan. That simplicity is deeply appealing to people who feel overwhelmed by the complexity of modern life. The idea that you could focus on one primary relationship and let everything else flow from that feels like a huge relief compared to trying to balance dozens of competing priorities and pressures. Of course, the nostalgia that Enoch memes evoke is not entirely realistic. The ancient world had its own problems and limitations that the stories do not emphasize. Life was often brutal, short, and filled with suffering that modern medicine and technology have largely eliminated. The simplicity that seems so appealing may have come at the cost of opportunities and freedoms that modern people take for granted. But nostalgia is not really about wanting to return to the past exactly as it was. It is about wanting to recover elements of the past that seem valuable and meaningful. When people feel nostalgic about Enoch's world, they are not necessarily wanting to give up modern conveniences and live in ancient conditions. They are wanting to recover the sense of wonder, mystery, and transcendent possibility that his story represents. The genius of Enoch memes is that they allow people to express and explore this nostalgia in a way that feels contemporary and relevant. They bridge the gap between ancient longings and modern sensibilities. They show that some human desires and dreams are truly timeless, even if the forms they take change from generation to generation. Internet culture meets ancient wisdom. Something fascinating happens when ancient stories collide with internet culture. The stories do not just become jokes or entertainment. They become laboratories for exploring timeless human questions in new ways. They become bridges between the wisdom of the past and the creativity of the present. They become proof that some themes and concerns are so fundamental to human experience that they transcend any particular time period or cultural context. Enoch memes represent one of the most interesting examples of this collision between old and new. Here you have a story that is thousands of years old, rooted in ancient Middle Eastern culture, preserved in religious texts that many modern people never read. But when that story encounters the fast-paced, irreverent, democratized world of internet memes, something magical happens. The ancient wisdom does not get lost or trivialized. Instead, it finds new forms of expression that make it accessible and relevant to contemporary audiences. Internet culture has some unique characteristics that make it particularly good at preserving and transmitting ancient wisdom, even when it seems to be doing the opposite. The internet rewards content that is surprising, emotionally resonant, and intellectually stimulating. Stories that have survived for thousands of years usually have those qualities in abundance. They have already been tested by countless generations and proven their ability to capture human imagination. When someone creates an Enoch meme, they are not just making a joke. They are participating in a tradition of storytelling and meaning-making that stretches back to the origins of human culture. They are taking an ancient story that has meant something important to people for millennia and finding new ways to help it speak to contemporary concerns and experiences. The format of memes is particularly well suited to this kind of cultural transmission. Memes are designed to be easily shared, quickly understood, and endlessly adaptable. They can take a complex idea and distill it into a simple image and a few words that capture the essence of the concept. They can make abstract theological or philosophical ideas concrete and relatable. For example, the concept that Enoch walked with God is beautiful, but potentially confusing to modern readers. What does that actually mean? How do you walk with an invisible, spiritual being? But when someone makes a meme showing Enoch taking a casual stroll with a representation of God, suddenly the concept becomes vivid and understandable. The theological abstraction becomes a relatable human experience. Similarly, the idea that Enoch was taken by God without dying is profound but hard to visualize. But when someone makes a meme showing Enoch getting beamed up like he is on Star Trek, or showing him just casually floating away while everyone else looks confused, the cosmic mystery becomes something that people can picture and laugh about while still appreciating its significance. Internet culture also excels at finding connections between seemingly unrelated things. Online communities are constantly drawing parallels between ancient stories and modern experiences, between religious traditions and pop culture references, between serious philosophical concepts and everyday situations. This kind of creative connection-making helps ancient wisdom remain relevant and alive. Enoch memes are full of these kinds of creative connections. People compare Enoch's disappearance to modern phenomena like ghosting someone in a relationship or logging off social media without explanation. They compare his walk with God to having a personal mentor or life coach. They compare his translation to heaven to getting the ultimate job promotion or winning the cosmic lottery. These comparisons might seem irreverent or shallow, but they actually serve an important function. They help people understand ancient concepts in terms of modern experiences that they can relate to. They build bridges between the ancient world and the contemporary world that make it easier for people to see the relevance and significance of old stories. The collaborative nature of internet culture also helps ancient wisdom evolve and develop in new ways. When someone posts an Enoch meme, other people respond with their own interpretations, variations, and elaborations. The story grows and develops through collective creativity, rather than being frozen in its ancient form. This is actually very similar to how these stories developed in ancient times. The brief account of Enoch in Genesis became the seed for centuries of elaboration, speculation, and creative expansion. Different communities developed different versions of his story, adding details and interpretations that reflected their own concerns and insights. The process of collective storytelling that we see in internet meme culture is not that different from the process that created the various ancient Enochian traditions. But there is something unique about how this process works in the internet age. The speed and scale are completely different. Ancient traditions developed over centuries through the work of small communities of scholars and storytellers. But internet traditions can develop in days or weeks through the collaborative efforts of millions of people around the world. This means that ancient stories can evolve and adapt much more quickly to contemporary concerns and sensibilities. They can stay relevant and meaningful in ways that might not have been possible in previous eras, when cultural change happened more slowly and communities were more isolated from each other. At the same time, the internet also helps preserve the original forms of ancient stories. When people create Enoch memes, they often include references to the original biblical text or provide links to additional information about the historical and religious context. The humor and creativity draw people in, but the educational content helps them understand the deeper significance of what they are laughing about. This creates a unique form of cultural literacy that combines entertainment with education, irreverence with respect, accessibility with depth. People learn about ancient traditions through memes, but they also learn to appreciate why those traditions have been meaningful to people across so many generations and cultures. The global nature of internet culture also means that ancient stories can encounter and interact with a much wider range of cultural perspectives than ever before. Enoch memes, created by people from Christian backgrounds, interact with memes created by people from Jewish backgrounds, Islamic backgrounds, or no religious background at all. Each perspective brings new insights and interpretations that enrich the overall understanding of the story. This cross-cultural pollination helps ancient wisdom transcend the particular religious or cultural contexts in which it originated. Stories like Enoch's can speak to universal human experiences and concerns that cross all kinds of boundaries. The memes help people see what is universally human about these ancient tales, not just what is specifically religious or culturally particular. There is also something democratic about how internet culture approaches ancient wisdom. Traditional religious and academic authorities no longer have exclusive control over how these stories are interpreted and understood. Anyone with creativity and internet access can contribute to the ongoing conversation about what these ancient tales mean and why they matter. This democratization has both positive and negative aspects. On the positive side, it allows fresh perspectives and insights that might not emerge from traditional scholarly or religious approaches. On the negative side, it can lead to misunderstandings or trivializations of complex traditions that deserve serious study and respect. But overall, the encounter between internet culture and ancient wisdom seems to be producing more understanding and appreciation rather than less. People who might never have encountered stories like Enoch's through traditional channels are discovering them through memes and finding them fascinating enough to explore further. Ancient wisdom is reaching new audiences and finding new forms of expression that help it stay alive and relevant. The key insight is that wisdom traditions survive and thrive not by remaining unchanged, but by finding new ways to express timeless truths in forms that speak to each generation. Enoch memes represent a contemporary version of this ancient process. They take eternal themes about human potential, divine relationship, and transcendent possibility, and express them in the language and formats that resonate with digital natives. In doing so, they prove that some stories are truly immortal, not because they never change, but because they can adapt to any cultural context while still preserving their essential meaning and power. Enoch walked with God thousands of years ago, but his story is still walking with us today, finding new paths through the landscape of human consciousness and creativity. The community that nobody expected. One of the most surprising things about the Enoch meme phenomenon is the community that has grown up around it. You would not expect an ancient biblical figure to become the center of a thriving online community, but that is exactly what has happened. People from all kinds of backgrounds have found themselves drawn together by their shared fascination with this mysterious character and his impossible story. The Enoch meme community is unlike most other online communities. It is not organized around shared political beliefs, common hobbies, geographic locations, or demographic characteristics. Instead, it is organized around a shared sense of wonder about one of the strangest stories in human history. People participate not because they necessarily believe the story literally, but because they find it endlessly fascinating and meaningful. What makes this community even more interesting is how diverse it is. You have committed Christians who take the biblical account seriously as historical fact. You have Jewish people who appreciate the rich rabbinical traditions that developed around Enoch's story. You have Muslims who know Enoch as the prophet Idris. You have people with no religious background who are simply intrigued by ancient mythology and mysterious stories. You also have people approaching Enoch's story from completely secular angles. Science fiction fans who see parallels to stories about alien abduction or interdimensional travel. Psychology enthusiasts who are interested in Enoch as an example of transcendent human potential. Philosophy students who appreciate the questions his story raises about the nature of reality and human consciousness. Somehow, all of these different perspectives manage to coexist and enrich each other within the broader Enoch meme community. People share memes, discuss interpretations, debate historical questions, and explore spiritual implications without the kind of hostility and division that characterizes many online communities. There seems to be something about Enoch's story that promotes curiosity and openness rather than dogmatism and conflict. Part of this might be due to the inherent mystery of Enoch's story. Since the original biblical account is so brief and leaves so many questions unanswered, there is plenty of room for different interpretations and speculations. Nobody can claim to have the complete and final understanding of what Enoch's story means or how it should be interpreted. That uncertainty creates space for respectful dialogue and creative exploration. The community has developed its own internal culture and traditions. There are running jokes about Enoch's mysterious disappearance, creative theories about what his heavenly life might be like, and ongoing debates about how to interpret the ancient sources. People share not just memes, but also scholarly articles, historical information, artistic interpretations, and personal reflections on what Enoch's story means to them. One of the most interesting aspects of the community is how it handles the question of belief. In many religious communities, there is pressure to believe certain things in certain ways. In many secular communities, there is pressure to dismiss religious stories as mythology or superstition. But the Enoch meme community seems to have found a third way that allows people to engage seriously with the story without having to commit to any particular interpretation of its literal truth. People can appreciate Enoch's story as a beautiful myth about human potential without necessarily believing that it happened exactly as described. They can find spiritual meaning in the story without committing to any particular religious system. They can enjoy the mystery and wonder of the tale without having to resolve all the questions it raises about history, theology, and the nature of reality. This approach allows the community to include people who would normally be on opposite sides of debates about religion, spirituality, and ancient history. Instead of fighting about whether the story is literally true or not, they can focus on what makes it meaningful and interesting. Instead of arguing about which religious tradition has the correct interpretation, they can appreciate the different insights that each tradition brings. The community also serves as a bridge between academic scholarship and popular culture. Serious researchers who study ancient Enochian literature find their work being discussed and appreciated by people who discovered Enoch through memes. Meanwhile, meme creators find themselves learning about historical context, ancient languages, and theological concepts that add depth to their creative work. This cross-pollination between scholarly and popular approaches enriches both sides. Academics get to see their specialized knowledge reaching broader audiences and being applied in creative ways they might never have imagined. Non-academics get access to scholarly resources and insights that help them understand the deeper significance of the stories they find fascinating. The community has also become a space for exploring broader questions about ancient wisdom, spiritual experience, and human potential. Enoch's story serves as a starting point for conversations about mysticism, transcendence, the relationship between time and eternity, the possibility of direct divine encounter, and the meaning of death and afterlife. These are some of the biggest questions that human beings have always asked, but they can be difficult to explore in our contemporary culture. Religious communities often approach them with predetermined answers. Academic communities often treat them as purely historical or philosophical abstractions. But the Enoch meme community has created a space where people can explore these questions with both intellectual rigor and creative playfulness. The humor that characterizes so much of the community's content serves an important function in this exploration. Humor allows people to approach serious and potentially overwhelming topics without being paralyzed by their weight and complexity. It provides a way to engage with ultimate questions while maintaining emotional equilibrium and social connection. But the humor in Enoch memes is not dismissive or reductive. It does not make fun of the story in a way that diminishes its significance. Instead, it celebrates the story's strangeness and mystery while acknowledging the very human ways that people might react to such extraordinary circumstances. The humor comes from recognition and empathy rather than mockery or superiority. This kind of respectful humor has helped the community attract people who might be put off by either purely religious approaches or purely secular approaches to ancient stories. It provides a middle ground where people can engage seriously with profound questions while still maintaining a sense of lightness and joy. The community has also developed practices of mutual support and encouragement that go beyond just sharing memes and discussing ancient stories. People share personal struggles and victories, offer emotional support during difficult times, and celebrate each other's achievements and insights. The shared fascination with Enoch's story has become the foundation for genuine human connection and friendship. This is particularly meaningful in an age when many people struggle with loneliness and social isolation. Online communities built around shared interests can provide real relationships and support networks that enrich people's lives in substantial ways. The fact that such a community has grown up around an ancient biblical figure that most people have never heard of shows the hunger that exists for meaningful connection and transcendent purpose. The global nature of the community is also noteworthy. People from different countries, cultures, and languages find common ground in their appreciation for Enoch's story. The universal themes of mystery, transcendence, and human potential speak across cultural boundaries in ways that more specific cultural products might not. As the community has grown, it has begun to influence broader cultural conversations about ancient wisdom, religious literacy, and the role of mystery in human life. Enoch memes have introduced millions of people to a biblical character they had never heard of and sparked interest in exploring other overlooked or forgotten stories from ancient traditions. This represents a significant cultural achievement. In an age when many people assume that ancient religious texts are boring, irrelevant, or culturally obsolete, the Enoch meme community has shown that these texts contain stories that can still capture contemporary imagination when presented in accessible and engaging formats. The community continues to evolve and grow, developing new forms of creative expression and new ways of exploring the questions that Enoch's story raises. It stands as proof that human beings still hunger for mystery, transcendence, and connection with something larger than their individual lives. It shows that ancient wisdom can find new life in contemporary forms when communities of curious and creative people come together to explore its possibilities. Deeper themes that keep us coming back. There is a reason why Enoch memes do not just go viral once and then disappear like most internet content. They keep coming back in waves, with new variations and interpretations appearing regularly. This staying power suggests that the memes are tapping into something much deeper than just momentary humor or curiosity. They are touching themes that are fundamental to human experience, themes that never really get resolved or exhausted, no matter how much we explore them. One of the deepest themes that Enoch's story represents is the possibility of escape from human limitations. Every person who has ever lived has had to deal with the basic constraints of human existence. We are born, we age, we get sick, we die. We are limited by our physical bodies, our finite lifespans, our restricted knowledge, our dependence on external circumstances for survival and happiness. Most of the time, people accept these limitations as unchangeable facts of life. You learn to work within the constraints rather than imagining that you could transcend them entirely. You make peace with mortality rather than hoping for immortality. You find meaning within the boundaries of ordinary human experience rather than dreaming of extraordinary alternatives. But deep down, most people still wonder if there might be ways to break free from these limitations. What if death is not inevitable? What if there are forms of existence that transcend physical bodies and finite lifespans? What if some people have discovered secrets that allow them to live according to different rules than everyone else?